Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yasodhanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana. Yasodhanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Banachari. Yamuna Tira Banachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Vishnupada Paramahansa Padavajikacharya Sutta Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBD Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavajikacharya Sutta Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Gauri Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sekaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Giridhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Jamunamai Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Maharani Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 20, conversation between Maitreya and Vidura, and we're going to do text 10, 11, and 12. 10 and 11 have no purport, so I'll just chant the Sanskrit and read the English translation, and then we'll do 12 together. Okay? Okay. Ye maricyadayo vipra yastu swayambhuvo manu te vai brahmana adesat katam etat abhavayam. Vidura inquired, how did the Prajapatis, such progenitors of living entities as Marichi and Swayambhuva Manu, create according to the instruction of Brahma? And how did they evolve this manifested universe? Sadvitya kim asrijan swantantra utakarmashu ahosvit samhataha sarva idam sma samakalpayan. Did they evolve the creation in conjunction with their respective wives? Did they remain independent in their action, or did they all jointly produce it? And now text 12. Maitreya Vacha Daivena Durvitarkyena Daivena Durvitarkenya Parinami Mishena Cha Parinani Mishena Cha Jatakoshad Bhagavato Jatakoshpad Bhagavato Mahan Asit Gunatrayat. Mahan Asit Gunatrayat. Maitreya Uvacha. Daivena Durvitarkyena. Padinani Mishena Cha. Jata Koshpad Bhagavato. Mahan Asit Gunatrayat. Vaishnavis. Maitreya Uvacha. Maitreya said, Daivena, by superior management known as destiny. Durvitarkenya, beyond empiric speculation. Padena, by Mahavishnu. Animishena, by the potency of eternal time. Cha and Jatashobat, the equilibrium was agitated. Bhagavata, of the personality of Godhead. Mahan, the total material elements. The Mahatattva. Asit, were produced. Gunatrayat, from the three modes of material nature. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Maitreya said, when the equilibrium of the combination of the three modes of nature was agitated by the unseen activity of the living entity, by Mahavishnu and by the force of time, the total material elements were produced. Purport. The cause of the material creation is described here lucidly. The first cause is daiva, or the destiny of the conditioned soul. The material creation exists for the conditioned soul who wanted to become a false lord for sense enjoyment. One cannot trace out the history of when the conditioned soul first desired to lord it over material nature, but in Vedic literature we always find that the material creation is meant for the sense enjoyment of the conditioned soul. There's a nice verse which says that the sum and substance of the conditioned soul's sense enjoyment is that as soon as he forgets his primary duty to render service to the Lord, he creates an atmosphere of sense enjoyment, which is called Maya. That is the cause of material creation. Another word used here is Dorvitarkyena. No one can argue about when and how the conditioned soul becomes desirous of sense enjoyment, but the cause is there. Material nature is an atmosphere meant only for the sense enjoyment of the conditioned soul, and it is created by the personality of Godhead. It is mentioned here that in the beginning of the creation, the material nature or Prakriti is agitated by the personality of Godhead Vishnu. There are three Vishnus mentioned. One is Mahavishnu, another is Garbhodakshay Vishnu, and the third is Kshirodakshay Vishnu. The first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam discusses all these three Vishnus, and here also it is confirmed that Vishnu is the cause of creation. From Bhagavad Gita we also learn that Prakriti begins to work and is still working under Krishna's or Vishnu's glance of superintendence, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead is unchangeable. One should not mistakenly think that because the creation emanates from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is therefore transformed into this material cosmic manifestation. He exists in his personal form always, but the cosmic manifestation takes place by his inconceivable potency. The workings of that energy are difficult to comprehend, but it is understood from Vedic literature that the conditioned soul creates his own destiny and is offered a particular body by the laws of nature under the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who always accompanies him as Paramatma. Om Ganatimadandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshudam Valitamyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. So we're entering into a section of the Bhagavatam here, which would bring somebody who's not already a devotee into contact with some ideas that they'd be very unfamiliar with. For instance, the three modes of material nature, Mahavishnu, etc. Just reading ahead a couple verses, the next verse talks about how evolved from the Mahatattva, in which the element of Rajas predominates, the false ego in turn evolved many groups of 5 principles. Goes on to say how separately unable to produce the material universe, but they combined with the help of the energy of the Supreme Lord and were able to produce a shining egg. For over 1,000 years, the shiny egg lay on the waters of the causal ocean in this lifeless state. Then the Lord entered as Garbhodakshay Vishnu. From the navel of the personality of Godhead, Garbhodakshay Vishnu sprouted a lotus flower effulgent like 1,000 blazing suns. This lotus flower is the reservoir of all conditioned souls, and the first living entity who came out of the lotus flower was the omnipotent Brahma. So somebody hearing that, who wasn't already a devotee, would think, what is this? And they kind of like get a little bit of a cognitive dissonance, just kind of like, wow, what are they talking? I mean, they'd almost think of it as, all heard the phrase science fiction. Well, they would probably feel that this is just like religious fiction. I mean, what does this have to? And there's a reason for that. And I'd like to read 2 paragraphs from a book written by Sariputta called Alien Identities, which have helped me have a good attitude towards what I was just referring to. So I'll just read these two paragraphs. Sariputta says, "For years I have been interested in the relationship between modern science and the ancient Vedic worldview of India. I've been particularly concerned with the contrast between the mechanistic model of life developed by modern science and the animistic or soul-based conception of life that lies at the foundation of Vedic philosophy. The scientific model of life is based on experiments and careful reasoning, but by reducing life to a combination of atoms, it deprives it of all higher purpose and meaning. It reduces human values to behavioral patterns produced by cultural and physical evolution. These behavior patterns are contingent on accidental historical circumstances, and they have little to do with the fundamental nature of things. In contrast, Vedic philosophy gives meaning to life by linking it with a transcendental level of reality. But in the process, it brings in phenomena and categories of being, such as what we just heard, and there's plenty more to come, okay? Brings in phenomena and categories of being that have no place in the theoretical picture of modern science. And we have to understand, we are children of the theoretical picture of modern science. See, we grew up, in that picture, thinking that this is the way, this is reality. We're kind of taught to think in terms of this theoretical picture of modern science. So when we come in contact with these, as Sariputta puts it, phenomena and categories of being that have no place within that picture, we go, wow, how could this must be fiction. But let's read on. It says here, this naturally gives rise to the question of where the truth lies. Has modern science given a complete outline of life's fundamental principles? Or has it perhaps given only a detailed but narrow account of certain limited aspects of life? And he doesn't directly say it, but of course his opinion and our opinion would be the latter, that modern science is not given a complete outline of life's fundamental principles, doesn't understand consciousness. That's about as fundamental as you can get, right? Doesn't understand consciousness and other things. But it's given a detailed but narrow account of certain limited aspects of life that help us live more comfortably and whatever. So that's an important thing to keep always keep in mind, that we shouldn't kind of dismiss or sell the Vedic worldview short. It's got something, very valuable to say, but we have to be prepared to put aside our bias, our prejudice, and just with an open mind go, well, let's go with this. Could be true, and that's really important. If somebody who's trying to make progress as a devotee, we have to, be prepared to accept that, have faith, in the statements of the Vedic literature, and practice Krishna consciousness. And even if we're not getting like a great result right away, that's not reason to think that there's anything wrong with the philosophy of the process. There's that expression, Rome wasn't built in a day. So, there's so many different reasons. Well, Prabhupada said, Palena Parichite, you're supposed to judge a process by the result. And we hear, when we read the books, and the result of practicing Krishna consciousness is an eternal life of blissful knowledge. And we're thinking, well, okay, I've been practicing Krishna consciousness now for a year and a half. Where's my eternal life of blissful knowledge? Well, you got to hold your horses, as the expression goes. There's a lot of different reasons why we might not be experiencing at this point an eternal life of blissful knowledge. One is, might not be practicing the process seriously enough. We might be committing offenses. We could be being tested by Krishna. We could be being tested by Maya. are we making, and also it could be expecting too much. We just simply could be expecting too much. I know for a while, for a year or two, Satchidananda was my Sankirtan partner. We used to go, and we would get to, especially when we were doing the parking lots, we would get there, and he would say, okay, now, lower your expectations. No, it's because it's not like a school where you can expect to do really good. It's just lower your expectations, just so we don't get all depressed out there when it's kind of nothing like where the school is. And it's very good advice. Sometimes you have to do that. You just have to lower your expectations. And, because, Prabhupada explains elsewhere that the conditioned souls, we've been in this, he said, one lecture he gave on Chaitanya Charitamrita way back in 1967, he said, many, many Brahma's lives have passed, and still we are conditioned. So that's like trillions of years. Actually, what comes after trillion? Quadrillion? We've been in this material world as conditioned souls for quadrillions of years. So, we can't necessarily expect that at the snap of, overnight, we're going to become Paramahamsas. It takes some time, So we have to be patient. We have to be patient, perseverant. We also have to be humble. We have to be humble. We have to, reflect on that's our position. We've been conditioned souls for trillions of years. It's just like if somebody came to the temple and, new devotee, and they started like cutting in front of the line to get the lamp, or cutting in front of the line to get prasadam every day. Okay, so, at first you'd go and explain to them, Prabhu, the etiquette is, but then if they persisted, even after, you nicely explain to them that that's the proper way to do things, if they persisted on doing that, at some point you might just haul off and say, hey, who the hell do you think you are? Right? You see? So we have to think like that about who the hell we think we are. We're just, we've been conditioned souls for trillions of years, and we're maybe thinking that, hey, well, I've been a devotee 57 minutes. Where's the eternal life of blissful knowledge? No. You got to be humble. We're very fallen. I'll speak for myself. If there might be devotees in the Krishna conscious movement who are very elevated and who's just continuing on from a past life. That's quite possible, and who are experiencing Krishna consciousness in a radically different way than what I am or we are, like that. And that's, to them, we offer our obeisances, sahasra koti dandavats, but we're not necessarily on that platform. That's okay. That's okay. Prabhupada explains that it's like a staircase, and take the Empire State Building, for example. There's 100 floors. So let's say between each floor there's 100 steps on the staircase. There's actually a staircase that goes to the top, aside from all the elevators. So 100 times 100 is 10,000. So there's a big difference, being on the 50th step on the first floor and being up on the 100th floor there, on the 10,000th step. You see, you're all on the staircase. Both people are on the staircase, but there's, gradations. It's like a hierarchy on the staircase. So, some devotees might be very high up there on the staircase, and we might be, kind of way, way lower down. But that's, it's not, no reason to be discouraged. Better to look, rather than comparing ourselves against the ideal all the time, eternal blissful life of knowledge, just ask yourself the question, well, am I making any progress? Do I feel like I'm making, yeah, sure, I'm not at the ideal standard, but am I making any progress? Do I feel like I'm less inclined to sleep all day, or overeat, or look at stuff I'm not supposed to on the internet? If you could answer that question yes, then okay, no reason to be discouraged. We're making progress. As I said, Rome wasn't built in a day. So, it's good to be thinking like that. And in this verse, in the purport today, is talking about how, and it says here, the first cause of the material creation is daiva, or the destiny of the conditioned soul. And it talks about how the conditioned soul has this desire to become a false lord for sense enjoyment. So what is the remedy? What is the remedy for this misunderstanding? Well, it's actually Rasa Lila. Now, you might be shocked to hear that, because as soon as we hear Rasa Lila, we think of Krishna dancing with the gopis, and of course that is the Rasa Lila. But in 1966, September 1966, in a Bhagavad Gita class that he gave, Prabhupada said something very interesting about the Rasa Lila. He gave a much broader definition or understanding of Rasa Lila, and I'll share that with everybody. Okay, so Prabhupada said, one who is intelligent, they should refrain from sensual enjoyment of this material body, which is flickering, not essential, and should seek such enjoyment of spiritual life. That is called Rasa Lila. See? So seeking enjoyment from spiritual life, that's the broad understanding of, that's what Prabhupada says, that is Rasa Lila. He says, you have heard about Lord Krishna's Rasa Lila. That is not ordinary exchange of feelings of this material body. That is exchange of feelings of the spiritual body. So that's what Rasa Lila is. We're seeking enjoyment in spiritual life, seeking for this exchange of feelings in the spiritual body. Well, okay, well, how do you do that? Oh, the next sentence is, so sukam adyantikam yatad buddhi grayam atindriya. So Prabhupada's giving us it's like a direction here, how to understand this. He's quoting, that line appears in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, text 21. So let's have a look at that. What that means. Sukam atyantikam yatad. So that particular line refers to this. Yeah. In the translation, that corresponds to, in that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness, realized through transcendental senses. See? So in other words, this exchange of feelings of the spiritual body is realized through transcendental senses. Now, in the purport to this particular verse that I just read the translation for, Prabhupada, it mostly describes the characteristics of somebody who's already situated in samadhi. It doesn't describe very directly about, this realized through transcendental senses. But prior to that, 2 verses prior to that, Krishna says, when the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, he is said to be well established in yoga. So in other words, when you're well established in yoga, you experience samadhi, and you realize things through, your transcendental senses are awakened. Well, how do you get there? How do you get to that point of being well situated in yoga, devoid of all material desires? Well, Prabhupada explains in the purport to this verse, he says, this perfectional stage can automatically be attained by persons in Krishna consciousness, as stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And then he quotes from the 9th canto, chapter 4, text 18 to 20, those verses about Maharaj Ambarish. And I'll just read the English translation. It says, King Ambarish first of all engaged his mind on the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Then, one after another, he engaged his words in describing the transcendental qualities of the Lord, his hands in mopping the temple of the Lord, his ears in hearing the activities of the Lord, his eyes in seeing the transcendental forms of the Lord, his body in touching the bodies of the devotees, his sense of smell in smelling the scents of the lotus feet offered to the Lord, his tongue in tasting the tulasi leaf offered to the lotus feet of the Lord, his legs in going to places of pilgrimage and to the temple of the Lord, his head in offering obeisances unto the Lord, and his desires in executing the mission of the Lord. All these transcendental activities are quite befitting a pure devotee. So that's the translation of that verse. And that is the process for being well situated in yoga. And when we're well situated in yoga, we will, Buddhi Grayam Atindidam, and then our transcendental senses are awakened, and then we'll be able to experience these transcendental exchanges. The exchange of feelings of the spiritual body. That's experienced with the transcendental senses, and which we just heard about the process for awakening the transcendental senses. So in the purport, Prabhupada says, he emphasizes the importance of this. He says this, the senses and the mind require engagements. Simple abnegation is not practical. Okay? This transcendental engagement of the senses and mind, as described above, is the perfect process for transcendental achievement. So in other words, engaging in devotional service is the perfect process for transcendental achievement. So we have what we need because for transcendental achievement, the perfect process, devotional service. Here it is, right here in New Dwarka. What else are we doing? We're doing exactly those things. You know, elsewhere it's stated there's 9 processes of devotional service: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dashyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedana. We're doing all those things here. And so basically we have to just plug in to what's happening here at New Dwarka, engaging in devotional service. There's nothing going on here other than just engaging in the 9 processes of devotional service. Now, one thing is that, okay, but you know, that's very general. You know, okay, so Shravanam Kirtanam, what do I hear and chant about? Well, you know, Prabhupada's given us the morning program, right? Mangalarti, Guru Puja, hearing the, you know, Srimad Bhagavatam. Theoretically, there's supposed to be an evening program, but you know, and also other specific instructions. In other words, the way to perfectly, the way to most accurately and effectively engage in devotional service, apply these principles, these general principles in our life, is to very carefully study the instructions of the spiritual master. You know, from the instruction of the spiritual master, we get insight into how to most accurately and precisely engage in devotional service, and we'll get the best result. So Prabhupada's instructions are there, of course, in his classes, in his letters, and in his books. And I don't know if this statement is considered authoritative, but at one point, I think it was Jayadvaita Maharaj, he did like an analysis about the hierarchy of authority of Prabhupada's statements. And I don't know if this is, as I said, something that's considered shastric or accepted, you know, by everybody, all devotees, but he put what's in Prabhupada's books at the highest level of authority. You know, if something appears in Prabhupada's books, that has a higher level of authority than, say, something that Prabhupada wrote in a letter or in a public lecture or something like that. Okay, so in Prabhupada's books in the 10th canto, there's a very interesting statement about, you know, he's giving us an instruction about how to engage in devotional service. And you've heard it before, but there's a lot of repetition in Krishna consciousness, so I don't feel bad about reading it again, especially, yeah, it's chapter 10, canto 10, chapter 2, text 37, and in the purport, Prabhupada says, the word kriyashu, meaning by manual labor or by work, is important in this verse. One should engage in practical service to the Lord. In our Krishna consciousness movement, all our activities are concentrated upon distributing Krishna literature. This is very important. One may approach any person and induce him to read Krishna literature so that in the future he may also become a devotee. Such activities are recommended in this verse. Kriyashu yach twas charanaravindayo. Such activities will always remind the devotees of the Lord's lotus feet. By fully concentrating on distributing books for Krishna, one is fully absorbed in Krishna. This is samadhi. So I'm reading this because, you know, the marathon's coming up, and it's that time of year. For us, every morning is kind of, in his announcements is, you know, saying, hey, everybody, remember World Enlightenment Day is coming up. So I thought that'd be a good thing for everybody to hear. And in this purport, Prabhupada's pointing out, it's kind of like, it's all auspicious. It's a win-win, because he's saying, this activity is very important because one may approach any person and induce him to read Krishna literature so in the future he may also become a devotee. So it's in Prabhupada's opinion, it's a very important program to give people a chance to become a devotee. And then he goes on and he talks about the benefits for the devotee, which is that by fully concentrating on distributing books for Krishna, one is fully absorbed in Krishna. This is samadhi. So it's a way that we can achieve the perfectional platform, samadhi, And it's also simultaneously, the same activity, it's a way that we can, do the best service for the conditioned souls, for humanity, giving them the opportunity to, take up Krishna consciousness by getting one of Srila Prabhupada's books. So it's a completely perfect activity. It's a totally win-win activity, going out and trying to distribute Prabhupada's books. The best thing we could do for us is the best thing we could do for them, Actually, I'll read one other excerpt from a letter. This is a letter actually that Prabhupada wrote to devotees here in New Dwarka back at the end of 1972, just after they completed their, they didn't call it the Prabhupada Marathon at that time, Christmas Marathon or whatever. They distributed 17,000 pieces of literature in 3 days. So Prabhupada was really pleased, and this is just an excerpt from the letter. Prabhupada says, "So I'm so much pleased upon all the boys and girls in Los Angeles and all over the world who are understanding and appreciating this unique quality of our transcendental literature, and are voluntarily, they are going out to distribute despite all circumstances of difficulty. By this effort alone, they are assured to go back home, back to Godhead." So, if you need motivation, I don't know what more motivation could we want than hearing that. Just by this activity alone, Prabhupada says, by this effort alone, devotees who are, doing book distribution are assured to go back home, back to Godhead. So it's a great incentive to do it. So I'll stop there. Does anybody have any questions? Or yes, first hand I saw go up. I'll just Prema Sankirtan.
So there is statement we always hear, Guru, Shastra and Sadhu. We have to look for them. Guru, Shastra, Sadhu. Is it some scriptural statement? I don't know. I ask from these three, which one is most important? Guru, Shastra, or Sadhu?
Which is most important?
Which one is first?
Which one's first?
Is it some like first Shastra or?
I'd say Guru. Okay. I'll tell you why I say Guru, because everything you get through is like through the Guru. I mean,
if you know Shastric statement.
Well, it's kind of like a Chincha Beta Tattva. Yeah, that's true. I think you could put good arguments.
I ask where you can find in Shastra, where you can read a statement about that the Shastra is number one. This is why I ask.
I don't know. But if I had to give an opinion just off the top of my head without having the opportunity to do any research, I would say Guru is the most important, because, I mean, like, how did I find out about Krishna consciousness? Well, through Prabhupada's books. Okay, that's Shastra, but it's simultaneously Guru. So, Guru was the active principle. Prabhupada produced those books, and then Prabhupada made those devotees. Devotees created the temples, so I would say, but I don't think it's, I wouldn't worry about it one way or the other. I think they're both really super important, but I would, as I said, I would say, yeah, go ahead. Right.
So they're simultaneous, obviously. In other words, I think you're right, and then at the same time, the books are important. So it's transcendental. It's two Bhagavats. You can get the book Bhagavat, and you can become the book in the question of appreciation, or you can just read the book. One level of the second association of a pure devotee of the Lord, your life has changed.
Right. Yeah. Archden. Oh, sorry. Did you finish what you wanted to say? Okay, Archden, yeah.
His question was Guru, Shastra, or Sadhu. Don't forget, this is an oral tradition. There were no books thousands of years ago. So Shastra was handed down through Guru to disciple, orally. We keep saying books, but there were no books thousands of years ago. Brahma spoke to Narada, Narada spoke to Vyasa. It was an oral tradition way down until just not so long ago, when Vyasadeva divided the Vedas and had it written down. So yes, Guru, Adau Guru Varshraya. That's what Rupa Goswami says, and we're supposed to be Rupa Nugas. The first principle is Guru. Adau Guru Vashraya. He must take shelter of a spiritual master. Then the spiritual master, if he's bona fide, will give you the Shastra, because he got it from a bona fide source, back all the way to Krishna. So it's not a question of books, it's Shastra. Shastra means that word which controls you, Shasdatu, that the word that controls you. So the Shastra is controlling us by telling us what to do, what not to do. But we're getting that from Guru.
Yep.
Nowadays, yes, you can get the book first, and then you find out, well, who wrote this book, and you see A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, and then you trace it out. But prior to, 5,000 years ago, that was not the case. You wanted to know how to live life, so you had to search out a guru, a person who could tell you the Shastra to control your life.
Thank you. Excellent answer. Bhrgupati Prabhu.
Yeah, you mentioned about the hierarchy of Prabhupada's books being on the top, and then like lectures or letters.
Yeah, but I said that might not. That was something I read at the beginning of the Vedabase, and I don't know if it's accepted. That was. It might just be Jayadvaita Maharaj's opinion. I don't know how.
Because I just was
accepted.
thinking of like small books like Beyond Birth and Death and Perfection of Yoga. Those come from lectures. And even Prabhupada mentions in some of his letters, we have our books, and he mentions those books also. So, anyway.
Okay, so you're saying that they have a high level of authority, or no? What's your
I just
point?
don't understand. I don't understand why it should be higher. They're from all the words that come from Prabhupada, and a number of the books have been lectures have been put out as books. And some of those published lectures have been even described by Prabhupada in his letters, saying we have our books, Srimad Bhagavatam, Beyond Birth and Death, and like that. So I don't see why there should be really a difference.
To be honest with you, I was only using that to lead on to the other point I was trying to make. I was trying to emphasize the importance of that paragraph I read from the 10th canto, and I was just using that as an alley-oop, so to speak, to say, well, this is in Prabhupada's books. It wasn't just something he said in the lecture. It wasn't just something he wrote in a letter. Here it is in a purport in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, so it has paramount importance. But as far as the point itself goes, about the hierarchy of authority, as I said, I heard that, I think I read it in the introduction to the Vedabase, Jayadvaita Maharaj, whoever wrote that, made that point, and I said in the class, I don't know if that's accepted, within learned circles, but that's what I read there, and I was using that as like a conveyance to emphasize the point that Kriyashu, what Prabhupada was saying in that 10th canto purport was super important. So I apologize if maybe my way of leading into that wasn't to your satisfaction. Anybody else? Anything? Swaspu.
Thank you. Nice class. I just wanted to mention about this book distribution and the front lines, being the front line of book distribution, distributing the books, and which is beautiful. I'm glad you're mentioning that. And it's also important to understand that, that Papa gives the analogy of an army. And in the army, the young boys that are going to the front lines, they need support. And the support comes from the backside. Making sure everything's arranged nicely so that when they go to the front lines, they can do their work. So in Krishna consciousness, we also have an army situation. We have devotees here at the temple. And those of us that are at the temple, we should do everything that we can in order to increase and support those young devotees or old devotees that are going out on book distribution. So especially for this month, we should do everything we can to support devotees like yourself that are going out daily. Dressing the deity is very beautiful, having good prasadam, keeping the temple clean, having nice kirtan, beautiful classes.
Mm-hmm.
All these things are important, and it helps increase the book distribution.
Yeah, I feel very supported. I think everybody's doing an excellent job. Jai, Granth Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.